How Japanese people declutter their wardrobe to shop less. Have you ever opened your wardrobe, stared at the dozens of clothes hanging inside, and felt completely disconnected? Not because you don't have anything to wear, but because nothing in there truly speaks to you anymore. Each item feels like background noise, making it hard for your mind to feel still. And deep down, maybe you're just tired of all the excess. If you've ever felt that way, then maybe this is your moment to pause and take a deep breath. Because what you're about to hear isn't just about how Japanese people declutter their wardrobes. It's an invitation to return to a gentler, quieter sense of enoughness within yourself. In Japanese culture, tidying up isn't just about organizing your belongings. It's a healing ritual. A way to listen to yourself through every decision, every folded shirt, every item you choose to keep or let go. And in doing so, you're not just tidying your closet, you're clearing space in the scattered, restless parts of your mind. Today's video isn't simply a guide. It's an invitation to step into a slower, more mindful rhythm of living, where less doesn't mean lacking, but feeling full, aligned, and at peace. We'll explore 10 deeply intentional steps the Japanese use to declutter their wardrobes. But as you move through them, you may begin to realize that what's truly being organized isn't just your clothing. It's the quiet, overlooked corners of your inner world. 1. The spark joy philosophy. Have you ever picked up a piece of clothing and felt your heart flutter, not because it was new or expensive, but because something about it felt deeply personal? Like you were touching a memory, brushing against a feeling, or simply seeing yourself more clearly in that moment? The Japanese have a word for that sensation, tokimeku, a quiet stirring of the heart when you encounter something that brings you joy. The spark joy philosophy was born from this delicate, almost imperceptible feeling. Unlike traditional methods of decluttering, where the focus is on practicality, asking whether something is useful or still wearable, this approach begins with emotion. You don't keep an item because it's trendy or because you feel guilty letting it go. You keep it because it lights something up inside you. Because when you hold it in your hands, something within you says, "Yes, this is me." And so, tidying up becomes something else entirely. No longer a chore, it transforms into a quiet act of self-discovery, a conversation between you and your inner world. A way to finally hear the small, honest voices that have long been drowned out by the noise of everyday life. Marie Kondo, who brought this method into global awareness, didn't just teach us how to fold our clothes differently, she offered us a new way of being. A perspective rooted in the Japanese way of honoring even the ordinary, where every object is seen as holding a spirit, a soul. Each shirt, each scarf, once walked with you through some chapter of life. And you deserve to live in a space where everything around you is something you truly love, not just something you couldn't let go of. But spark joy is not just about what stays. It's also about how we say goodbye. When something no longer makes your heart flutter, you don't throw it out in frustration or guilt. You pause. You acknowledge it. You thank it perhaps silently, perhaps aloud, and then, with grace, you release it. Just like the Japanese custom of honoring what once served us, this small ritual brings closure, not just to objects, but to parts of ourselves. If it no longer serves the heart, it must go. A simple belief, yet one with the power to shift both your living space and your inner world. And as you gradually pare down to only what sparks joy, you begin to notice your room expanding not just physically, but energetically. It feels calmer, lighter, more alive. Because beneath every piece of clothing is a choice. And beneath every choice, there is you undecorated, unburdened, and finally, unmistakably true. That's when tidying stops being about putting things in order and becomes a way to put your life back in alignment. 2. Sort by category, not by location. If you've ever cleaned out your wardrobe the usual way, one drawer at a time, one shelf at a time, you've probably felt that strange frustration of tidying endlessly without ever feeling like it's truly done. You gather things from one corner, only to find another pile emerging somewhere else. You finish one section, and suddenly, the rest feels even messier. But the Japanese teach us something quiet yet profound. Don't declutter by location, declutter by category. It sounds like a small shift, but it completely changes how we relate to our belongings. When you gather every single item of clothing, whether it's from your main closet, a drawer, a laundry rack, a suitcase, or even under the bed and place it all in one spot, something happens. You're no longer seeing fragments. You're facing the whole truth. And sometimes, that truth stuns you. You used to think, I have nothing to wear. But when your clothes spill across the floor in towering piles, you realize the problem isn't a lack of clothes. It's a lack of awareness. Sorting by category, placing all your t-shirts together, your dresses in one group, activewear in another, lets you see your consumption habits with striking clarity. You begin to notice patterns you've been blind to for years. The same cuts, the same colors. That one style you kept buying over and over again, even though it hasn't felt like you in a long time. And then something shifts. As you sit in front of each group, running your hands across every piece, you're no longer just organizing things. You're stepping into a deeper process, one that isn't driven by logic alone, but by emotion, memory, and intuition. You begin to feel what belongs and what doesn't, not in your closet, in your life. The Japanese have a saying, the space outside is a reflection of the quiet inside. When your mind feels scattered, it's often because everything around you is disjointed and fragmented. Sorting by location feeds that fragmentation, but sorting by category brings coherence. It reveals connections. It brings stillness. Because when you stop seeing your wardrobe as compartments and start seeing it as a whole, you're not just putting things in order, you're creating a conversation between who you are and what you own. That's when the purpose of tidying gently transforms. It's no longer about achieving neatness, it becomes about understanding. And once you understand, you can choose. Not just what to keep, but what to let go with clarity, with calm, and maybe, for the first time, with kindness. 3. Shock from quantity. There's something strange that happens when you gather all your clothes into a single pile. Not just the ones in your main closet, or tucked neatly into drawers, or hidden in that suitcase under the bed. But every single piece, brought out into the open, unfiltered, unapologetic, and completely exposed. And then, you freeze. That pile taller than you expected, messier than you remembered, more than you ever imagined, suddenly becomes a mirror. A painfully honest reflection of how you've lived, how you've shopped, how you've accumulated. The Japanese call this moment visual shock, a kind of awakening, where your eyes finally see the truth your mind has long been avoiding. It's overwhelming, but it's necessary. In a world where everything is stored so tidily behind closed drawers or stacked in labeled boxes, it's easy to lose track of just how much we own. But when it's all out there, in full view, you can't look away anymore. You can't tell yourself, I don't buy that much, when you're standing in front of a mountain of clothes spilling across your floor. You can't keep saying, I might need this one day, when you realize you have 7 of the same shirt in slightly different shades, none of which you even remembered buying. But this shock isn't meant to shame you, it's meant to wake you up, because only when you see clearly can you begin to change. There's a quiet but piercing Japanese truth. Excess is the silent shape of unease. Every extra item isn't just taking up space, it's weighing on you, silently, invisibly. And in that moment when you're standing there, staring at that pile, you don't just see clothes, you see the fear of emptiness, the times you shopped to soothe yourself, the sales you chased to feel worthy, the late-night clicks that filled your cart but not your soul. But here's the beautiful part. Once you choose to face it, everything begins to soften, like fog dissolving under morning light. From that place, you begin clearing more than just your closet. You start unlearning old habits. You find yourself less tempted by discounts, less drawn to filling the cart just because. You begin to shop slower and live deeper. Because once you've felt that shock, once you've truly seen how much you've carried, you won't want to go back there again. And maybe, just maybe, that overwhelming pile of clothes gave you the most meaningful gift of all. 4. Thank and say goodbye. There are clothes we no longer wear, yet we still keep them. Not because we need them, but because we feel a sense of regret. Regret that they were expensive. Regret that they carry a memory. Regret wrapped in the thought, maybe I'll wear it again someday. And so we hold on. But that regret doesn't bring us peace. It only makes our spaces tighter and our hearts heavier, little by little. In Japanese culture, there's a quiet philosophy called Mottainai. It's a gentle reminder not to waste, not just in a practical sense, but in a deeper, more spiritual way. It teaches us to honor everything that has come into our lives, even if only for a brief moment. And because of that reverence, the Japanese have a beautiful habit. Before letting go of something, they say thank you, softly, sincerely, without rushing. Thank you for keeping me warm on cold days. Thank you for walking with me on that long journey. Thank you for once making me feel confident or simply comfortable. They thank the item, then set it down, like saying goodbye to an old friend with neither guilt nor resentment. When you begin to thank your belongings, you realize you're also thanking parts of your life. Each item holds a fragment of memory, and saying goodbye with kindness becomes a way of closing chapters not by erasing them, but by honoring them. No longer fitting doesn't mean it was meaningless. That's the quiet heart of Mottainai. Every item, even after leaving your hands, can continue its story in someone else's home, in a new form, or with a new purpose. You might choose to donate it to someone who needs it more, or recycle the fabric into something useful, something small and lovely. You might mend it with a few stitches and a little care. And then, you'll notice you're no longer afraid to let go, because letting go isn't loss anymore. It becomes an act of gratitude. Your space begins to breathe again, softer, wider, warmer, because you're not just tidying your closet, you're learning how to be thankful. And in a noisy, fast-moving world that constantly pushes us to want more, to grab more, to buy more, that simple thank you even to an old shirt is a quiet rebellion, a way to live with presence and grace. 5. Organize your wardrobe scientifically. After you've decluttered, after you've chosen what to keep, after you've expressed gratitude and let go, there comes a quiet but meaningful moment. The act of putting things back in place. Not just to make things look nice, but to gently rebuild a sense of order, one where each item has its own rightful space, like a trusted companion that's no longer crammed in or forgotten. The Japanese don't tidy just to make things neat, they tidy to listen. And in the KonMari method, the way clothes are folded is itself a soft expression of respect. Each shirt or pair of pants isn't carelessly rolled or stuffed into a corner. Instead, it's folded gently with both hands, into a clean, compact shape that can stand upright quietly, peacefully, on its own. There's something deeply Japanese in the way clothes are folded to stand tall. It doesn't scream for attention, but it also doesn't disappear. It's visible, recognizable, inviting in a calm, non-intrusive way, waiting to be chosen with intention. Vertical folding isn't just about saving space. It's about not needing to dig through layers of fabric every time you get dressed. Each item stands like a quiet offering, asking, "Do you need me today?" And if the answer is no, it stays still, unbothered, uncrushed, undisturbed. A space, arranged with intention, has a quiet healing power. When you group similar items together, when you line up your clothes from darkest to lightest, when you use simple drawer dividers to create small boundaries, it's not just about aesthetics. You're sending a subtle message to your mind. You now know what you have, what you need, and what you choose. And that kind of clarity, even inside a single drawer, can ripple outward. Because in some quiet way, external order soothes internal chaos. The Japanese believe stillness doesn't come from eliminating noise. It comes from arranging what already exists. So organizing isn't the final step. It's the beginning of a new rhythm, a life where you're no longer overwhelmed by choices, where your mornings start with ease, and your evenings end in quiet satisfaction. When everything has its place, you start to feel, maybe for the first time in a long while, that you do too. 6. Apply one in, one out. One of the simplest yet most powerful principles the Japanese follow to keep their wardrobe in balance is this: one in, one out. It may sound practical, and it is, but beneath its simplicity lies an entire way of living. Because the Japanese don't hoard, they protect harmony. And to protect harmony, sometimes you don't need more. You just need to know when something is enough. When a new item comes in, something else must step out. Not because there isn't space, but because every item takes up energy not only in your home, but in your mind. Keeping the quantity steady doesn't just prevent quiet clutter from creeping in. It forces you to face your choices more consciously. Before bringing something new into your space, You pause and ask yourself, do I truly need this? Is it filling an actual gap, or just feeding a fleeting excitement? And if the answer is yes, then comes the next question. What will I let go of to make space for this? When practiced regularly, this habit reshapes how you shop. Buying no longer feels rushed or reactive. It becomes a moment of reflection. You stop getting swept away by sales, or chasing that sense of, I deserve this, only to toss the new item into a pile that already overwhelms you. The more you have, the less you see. The less you have, the more clearly you live. The Japanese understand that the true value of an item doesn't lie in its price tag or rarity, but in how deeply it shows up in your everyday life. And when you live by one in, one out, you're reclaiming your role in curating your space. You're no longer letting your closet choose for you each morning. You're deciding deliberately, quietly, with awareness. Some even take this further, adopting one in, two out as a gentle but firm way to release what no longer serves. Others keep a ripening drawer, giving certain pieces time to rest before parting ways, allowing the heart to catch up with the decision. Whatever your way, the essence remains. For something new to come in, something old must gently step aside, because your living space is like breath. To inhale, you must first learn to exhale. 7. Build a capsule wardrobe. There are mornings when you stand in front of a packed wardrobe and still sigh, I have nothing to wear. That one sentence, simple on the surface, is actually a sign of deeper clutter, not just in your closet, but in your choices, your sense of style, and even in your state of mind. The Japanese take a different approach. They don't try to cram in more. Instead, they choose to refine. And in that journey of refinement, they turn to the idea of a capsule wardrobe. A capsule wardrobe isn't a fashion statement. It's a quiet ecosystem, one where every piece of clothing has a purpose, a connection, and the ability to mix effortlessly with others. Instead of owning as much as possible, you hold on to only what truly serves you, not based on a fixed number, but on how deeply each piece belongs in your life. Creating a capsule wardrobe is an intentional act. You begin by taking a full look at what you own, not to judge each piece, but to ask yourself, honestly, what do I really need for the life I'm living right now? Then comes the art of letting go. You keep what fits not just your body, but your lifestyle, your temperament, and who you are today, not what you hope to become someday. You gravitate toward calm, harmonious colors. You choose silhouettes that last, not trends that vanish. And slowly, you begin to realize, having less doesn't make you feel restricted. It makes you feel free. A capsule wardrobe doesn't limit you. It liberates you from the exhausting cycle of buy, discard, regret, buy again. It teaches you to see more clearly what really matters. And each morning when you open your closet, you're no longer overwhelmed. Instead, you see something balanced and calm, a reflection of yourself, expressed through fabric and form. Less, but deeper. Less, but just enough. Less, but complete. That's not just a style philosophy, it's a life philosophy. Because clothes are only one part of the story. When you find the courage to pare down your wardrobe, you're also softening the noise within. You're learning to choose less, but to choose with presence. And maybe that's the truest form of luxury, a quiet elegance that begins from the inside out. 8. Seasonal rotation. The Japanese have a tradition called koromogai, which means changing clothes with the season. Twice a year, around the beginning of June and October, they quietly shift their wardrobes, bringing out summer garments and tucking away the layers of winter that have finished their purpose. On the surface, it might look like a simple adjustment to the weather. But in truth, it's a ritual, a rhythm of living that gently aligns the self with nature. Koromoge isn't just about keeping things tidy. It's about renewal, because in the moment you touch each old piece of clothing, you're also brushing against small shifts in your life. You may not have noticed a shirt that used to be loose, now fits just right, a dress you once loved that no longer feels like you, a color that once brought joy now feels quieter. Each seasonal change becomes a mirror, asking gently, how have I changed? What still belongs to me? What can I let go of? The Japanese don't cling, they refresh. And koromogai is how they declutter through connection, not exhaustion. When we choose to keep only what belongs to the present, We honor both the now and the memories that brought us here. There's a line in Japanese culture that stays with me. The space outside is a reflection of the stillness within. And so, the wardrobe shifts with the season. No force, no resistance. Just a quiet surrender to what is. When we live in step with the seasons, when we stop holding on to what is already past, our hearts feel lighter just like our closets. Today, with faster lives and shifting climates, Mottainai has become more flexible. The dates may change, but what matters is the spirit behind it living in tune with nature and with who we are right now. Not everyone has the time or space for a full wardrobe overhaul, but sometimes, even the smallest act, storing away a heavy coat as the sun softens, or pulling out a light dress when the breeze warms, can be a quiet reminder. The season has changed, and so have I. In the modern world, Mottainai is no longer a formal ritual of the imperial court like it once was in the Heian era, but it still holds its original stillness, a pause to breathe, to reflect, to choose again, and to move forward. Because living simply doesn't mean living with less. It means living in harmony with each season of yourself. 9. Focus on quality over quantity. We're living in an age where everything can be replaced with just a few clicks. A shirt goes out of style after one season. A garment with a tiny tear is tossed away because buying a new one is just as cheap as fixing it. But the Japanese see things differently. They live by an old philosophy called Mottainai, a gentle reminder that everything in this world deserves to be respected because each item has traveled a long journey before arriving in our hands. That's why, instead of chasing quantity, they choose quality. A carefully tailored coat, a pair of sturdy leather shoes that age with grace, a bag that never follows trends but grows more personal with time. These are the pieces they truly cherish. To own less, but to own more deeply. When you choose something because of its careful stitching, because the natural fabric feels calming to the touch, because it speaks to your senses in a quiet, grounding way, that item becomes more than a thing. It becomes a part of your lifestyle, a silent companion in your everyday life. And once you've grown attached, you begin to care. The Japanese don't wash wool in hot water. They don't leave white shirts in the harsh sun. They don't hang silk dresses on thin metal hangers. They know that every fabric deserves to be treated a certain way, as if they're tending to something with a soul. When something wears out, they don't throw it away in haste. They mend it with sashiko stitches, each thread a quiet conversation with time. The repair isn't to hide the flaw, but to honor it, to let the age and wear become part of the beauty. When an item is respected, it stays with you longer. That's a quiet, unwavering truth in Japanese living. And what's remarkable is that when you live with fewer things, but each one thoughtfully chosen, you stop feeling tempted by short-lived purchases. You shop less, but each purchase is intentional. When you stop accumulating, you start living. When you know what's enough, you begin to feel free. Because minimalism isn't about how little you have. It's about how deeply you care for what you keep. 10. The enough mindset. There's a quiet moment that arrives when you stand in front of your wardrobe, not to look for more, but to gently tell yourself, what I have is enough. That feeling doesn't come from something expensive. It doesn't come from following trends. It comes from a soft sense of relief when you stop chasing, stop comparing, stop wanting more than you truly need. The Japanese have a beautifully subtle way of living with the feeling of enough. They don't stop dreaming, but they know when to pause. The mindset of enough isn't resignation. It's refinement of filtering out of the pressure to constantly upgrade, to always have more, to measure your worth by accumulation. And when you live with that spirit, you begin to see your wardrobe through different eyes. Old clothes are no longer seen as outdated, but as familiar companions. You start getting creative with what you already own, layering, restyling, refreshing through small personal touches. And with every thoughtful change, you're not just renewing an outfit, you're renewing the way you see yourself. I have nothing to wear slowly stops being a complaint. It becomes a quiet reminder. Maybe it's time to look at what you already have with gratitude instead of dismissal. When you embrace enough, you stop shopping out of boredom or impulse. You stop feeling restless just because someone else has something new. You begin to draw clear boundaries. You buy only when it matters, not to fill a void. You find joy in slipping into a shirt that's traveled with you through seasons of your life. The Japanese say, Not adding is also a way of preserving your inner stillness, preserving the environment, preserving your attention for things that truly matter. This mindset doesn't arrive overnight. It takes practice. It takes reflection. It often takes community, a shared space to remind one another that beauty doesn't come from more, but from meaning. And one day, you'll notice that as your wardrobe sheds an extra item, your heart gains a little more space to breathe, to live more lightly. Because minimalism isn't just about having less. It's about living with clarity, knowing you already have enough, and enough is already so beautiful. If something in this video made you pause and reflect, I'm truly grateful you stayed with me until the very end. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments, and if you feel ready, write, "I choose to live with enough," as a quiet affirmation of the path you're beginning to walk. Tell me how you're not just decluttering your wardrobe, but also gently tending to the deeper spaces within yourself, where simplicity can bring true peace. Thank you for being here, for allowing your heart to slow down and touch the quieter, more meaningful layers of life. Remember, every transformation begins with a small step. Maybe it's folding an old shirt with care. Maybe it's letting go of something that no longer feels like you. We're learning together how to live with less, but feel more. And the best part is, you don't have to walk this journey alone. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll keep peeling back the unnecessary and move a little closer to a life that feels calm, full, and truly enough.